And if you're able to rise above that, then it really puts you in a very unique position when you find yourself outside Nigeria, because you're now ahead of a lot of people. And we can see this evidence even in the diaspora community, right? Nigerians are one of the immigrants that are doing really well. Yeah. Because when you're doing business, there's really no way of knowing until you do. Then you do repeatedly. Then over a period of time, you now understand that business because you're now ahead of a lot of people. That business is thriving now, and we've gone from one station to about 50 stations now in under 4 years. When there are changes, there are also opportunities. Going into retail was uncharted waters. Now, I also just had twins towards the end of that year. It was now time to renew my rent, and then great COVID happened to us. It just wasn't working. My siblings summoned me that's like, what was the plan for your life?
Hi everyone, I'm Ezinne, and you're welcome to the DBIN Podcast, the show where we explore the untold stories of what it really takes to run a business in one of the world's most dynamic markets and Africa's biggest economy. Our guest today is as dynamic as they come. She's not just a powerhouse in business, she's a true advocate for women in entrepreneurship, an investment guru, and a woman who wears many hats so gracefully. She's a director at Nepal Energies and the founder of 234 Finance, a platform dedicated to promoting entrepreneurship and bridging the gap between investors and opportunities in Africa's emerging market. In addition to all these, she's a wife of 10 years, a mother to 3 handsome boys, and get this, her name is also Ezinne. Please join me in welcoming Ezinne Nwazulu to the podcast. Hi Ezinne, welcome to the DBIN Podcast.
Happy to be here.
How does it feel with Tana Given?
Kindred spirits. I think we have a similar vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I don't meet Ezinne that often.
Same, right? I'll just say that. I think I've met like 2 Ezinnes and you are the second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was doing some research on
Okay. What did you find?
Yeah, and I saw a very lovely picture. You are a director at Nepal Energies. So how did you even get into this line of business? I want you to explain it like you're talking to a 12-year-old. So what has your journey been?
With Nepal.
Yes.
It's been a very interesting journey. So Nepal is a family-owned business that was founded by my dear mother. And if you think I'm a powerhouse, then I'm just doing press up. So it was something she stumbled upon. It wasn't something she had planned to get into. And she's been doing the business, it's been thriving. So I joined the business. There were 2 attempts. And I have to be honest and transparent. There were 2 attempts to join the business. The first attempt was in 2017. I had just moved and just relocated from Abuja back to Lagos. And, when you come with that mindset of wanting to change everything and knowing more than the people that have been doing the business in the way that works for them. And it didn't quite work out. And at some point, I also just had twins towards the end of that year, came back to work right away and juggling, coming back to the office and work and my baby 234 Finance, which we'll probably go into later. And it just wasn't working. So at some point I left and started to do my own thing fully. Then of course the great COVID happened to a lot of us. So I did the first year, then it was now time to renew my rent. And then just before COVID happened, actually, I shut down the business. My siblings summoned me. That's like, what was the plan for your life? And I was looking at them like the ones that I used to take care of, are now coming to ask me what I'm doing in my life. So I came back to the office, not even trying to do like the oil and gas, had it back, like very prodigal child kind of thing, right? And from there, that period I was transitioning back into the company, my mom decided that she wanted to launch a retail business, gas station business. It's a business that we've always kind of avoided, even though we've been in the industry for this long. And because the model of Nepal it was very back B2B. So we never really cared about branding. brand business, all of that, because it was just B2B, right? So going into retail was uncharted waters for us at the time. And my mom was like, I want you to run this business. I was learning on the job and I was working with people who had 10, 20, 15 years experience, and I had to manage them and learn compared to, the first time I was in the company where I didn't feel like I fit into anything. This felt like my baby. Like, and at my very core, I like to build stuff. I like to see things. And maybe that's where my passion for startups came up. I just like to see something start and grow, like that whole process. Right. So it felt like, okay, this is something I can do. I'm not, fighting with anyone. Nobody is a small business, is retail compared to the other businesses that Nepal does. And we started with one station. We started in August of 2020 in the heart of COVID. So a lot of headache. I won't go into it, but that business is thriving now. And we've gone from one station to about 50 stations now in under 4 years. And that's something, I don't do retail anymore, but that's something that, is very dear to me, and it's my claim to fame in the oil and gas industry. Yes.
Yeah. What exactly does the hot energy?
So Nepal Energies is a Pan-African energy company. We are based in Nigeria and have branches in Southern Africa. So it's a downstream oil and gas company. So we trade, we distribute, and we have retail station that services the last mile. So anywhere from bringing in the products to the person that buys from the filling station, we cover that entire value chain.
What are the things that makes one ready to take on such a huge thing as what you have?
So I think the first thing is the relationship the parent and the child have. The relationship we have with our mom. My mom is she's like a sister, a friend, everything to us. So when you have that kind of relationship, it puts you at an advantage where you can almost manipulate that child to do what you want and sell something to where the child buys into it. So I think that relationship is one, and that awareness, of knowing somebody has toiled to build something. And also, there's also a place of proving yourself.
Yeah.
Nothing just gets handed for any smart entrepreneur. If I have a son, okay, I have children and I grow a business, I'll just give it to them because they're my children. It's also proving yourself because at the end of the day, it's not what you learn in school that applies in the business, or the fact that tell you everything you learn, all your education, just pack it and throw it to the side. Especially in Nigeria, you start learning from scratch. And it's just proving yourself, because the more you prove yourself, the more responsibilities you'll be given. I really had to prove myself. Retail felt like a second chance that I did not want to blow, given what had happened in the past. And with that, proving yourself and learning on the job and being humble enough to learn from everyone and to not be entitled, it also helps because the people who have been in the system longer don't feel you're some sort of threat to them, but you're coming to even enable them in their own spaces. And that's also something that I pride myself for, just, being able to navigate relationships and letting people see the value that I have to them. So it wasn't a thing of, oh, I'm GMD's daughter or whatever, and I come with this entitled mentality. Just submitting yourself to the job as a regular employee that has no additional benefits. And I think that helps. And, it helps with the, getting the work, prioritizing the work and not, your personal differences, because those things come up in family business dynamics have their own unique challenges. But, putting those two things in balance and understanding that this is work and nothing else.
Yeah.
So all of that, comes together and helps in that transition of being able to manage or be part of the family-owned business.
Thanks so much for sharing. I really like how you pointed out that you had to learn a lot of things on to do, because that was something I first and coming into the workforce and everything. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges you say you have faced as you have come into this into that you have seen as a result of doing business in this country? Would like government policies, maybe certain licenses you need to get? Yeah.
I would say some because oil and gas, you have to be very careful what you grant in interviews.
Yeah.
So yes, policy because one policy can literally crumble your business. I'll give you an example. Like I said, petrol is a subsidized product, right? And what that means is that, you know, you're not selling at the price that you got it. So who pays that differential? I'm not going to go so deep into it.
Yeah.
So there was a period, I'm just giving you an example in the industry. This was long before I joined the company, the family business, that as a petroleum marketer, you would bring your product, government to tell you how much to sell it so that they can sell it below the market price. Then government now refunds you. Let me use it in the simplest term. Refunds you
Yeah.
after, right? You show, some numbers, your books and all of that. And unfortunately, there was also a situation where people would claim what the government wasn't owing them.
Mm.
So in a bid for the government to put control measures into that, the government, being NNPC, decided to be the sole importer of PMS. And PMS is the fastest moving petroleum product. So what that means is that if you don't have the right relationships, so there's something called a PFI. So PFI is basically a document that helps you process product of take from the government, being NNPC, right? So there's a lot of politics to even get that paper and now, start planning around it. So I won't go into details. It's a bit, dicey, but that's, one of the challenges that marketers face. I mean, now there's Dangote Refinery, which is disrupting. That's a whole different,
That's
a whole different subject matter. I'm not going to go into it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a welcome development because it means that we're not going to be depending so much on imports. And for national security and energy security, it's important that, the country becomes self-sustaining to at least, we produce crude. So it doesn't make any sense. You produce your crude, you have to go into swap deals with international traders and buy their finished goods. So you're at the shorter end of the stick. So I think Nigeria and downstream petroleum industry is going through a lot of shifts. And of course, policy is also going to drive a lot of the changes. But for Nepal, we've been very nimble and very flexible and very open. And what does that mean? It means that if a policy changes or there's a disruption in the industry, how are you able to quickly adapt to the realities, not to what you would have it be, but to what it is, right? And I think when there are changes, there are also opportunities if you pay attention to those changes, right? And how are you keying into those opportunities that will present themselves? Because you can say, oh, wow, my business, it's either your business shuts down or you change your business model, right? And that's something I can say with my full chest that Nepal has been able to do or is doing, being open enough to seeing how we can adapt to the current market realities. 234 Finance is a digital ecosystem that promotes African entrepreneurship. That's like the summary and the length and breadth of what 234 Finance is. And how do we do that? We do that through our 5 C's, right? Those are 5 core values. So content, community, capacity building, capital, and collaboration, right? And how did I start 234 Finance? Very interesting story. And as much as my oil and gas and 234 are parallel, they're somehow intertwined, and I'll explain what I mean. So in my former life, I worked in an international trading company in Geneva called Mercuria. For those in the industry, they know, who Mercuria is. In 2012, and while I was in Mercuria, I was a research analyst. I was working out of their head office in Geneva, looking after their West African business. So basically collecting data, studying the trends. It was an entry level role, understand, just helping the desk that, brought in products to the WAF market. WAF is the West African region, and also the structured finance desk that made the decision on, whether to deploy capital into a trade or not. And while I was there, I noticed a gap. So the gap was when I had to get data on African markets, it was very difficult. So if it was a different market, I'll just, you do a Bloomberg subscription and you just got data at the tip of your fingers. But when it came to African market, Nigerian market, the data was just, there were just so many gaps in the data. You can't just press something and it would feed you that data, right? So you had to call people, you had to know people. It was just very stressful. So I'm like, how come somebody hasn't built a Reuters or a Bloomberg for the African market? And Africa of takes so much, saying in the energy space, right? So that was where the idea actually came from. And that's why it sounds very like almost like an economy website, because that was the original idea, to create like an economy website that, if you are a foreigner or you just wanted information on business, you wanted some sort of directory, you could just access it. So that was how we started, and we built the website from scratch. And, you know, at the time, I was working with a lot of research people, journalists. I was the editor in chief. I gave myself that title. So I would, edit articles, publish them. And it was very much on like happenings from the economy, side. And I think when Buhari came into government, I say Buhari, yes, in 2014, his first term, there was this push on supporting small businesses, agriculture. So we did a lot of social listening when we launched the website. Okay, maybe, and the fact that it was an economy website, we also wasn't very focused. So we're touching on different subject matters on the economy. It was quite broad. And we're like, okay, how can we appeal to the Nigerian audience, to the young, because the Nigerian population, the huge chunk of the Nigerian population are young, right? And they're young people that are also starting businesses. So the whole idea was, how can we, support this entrepreneurship, thriving entrepreneurship community? And then was when Jumia came on board, Easy Taxi, before Uber, Easy Taxi came. Yes. I mean, Bankole was one of the people that I interviewed, when we decided I wanted to focus on businesses, right? Well, like, let's kind of refine this economy website and focus on SMEs and businesses. And that was really where it took off in like 2014, just the website. And we realized as much as it was so much effort working with journalists, getting content, publishing it. And this was like a hobby. It wasn't like a business. And, we realized that we weren't really connecting to the people that we were trying to target, right? That it can't just stop at sharing content on social media or sharing content on a website. If you really want to, these are SMEs that have real needs, right? A lot of them have funding gaps. A lot of them lack access to mentorship. A lot of them just need to be pointed in the right direction. And we realized that just doing articles wasn't enough to, add value to these SME community that was really thriving in Nigeria. So we decided to launch the mentor matchup. Rest in peace, my late friend Emilia, Ezinne. It was her idea. She came up with the entire concept. And the whole idea for the mentor matchup, we launched that in 2017, was to engage with the SME community and mentor them and connect them to mentor figures. So we started that in 2017. Just like this table here, boardroom setting, we would get a mentor and we'll get mentees who are in the same sector as the mentor, bring them together and just get them to have a conversation. So we did that 4 times back to back. We got Gossi, the Kanuki, we got Isioma Koka. We got, different mentors that we had access to through our immediate and extended network. Then the following year, we decided to scale it up. And we started the Mentor Matchup Challenge event, annual event that we host in December. And the whole idea was to not just mentor them, but touch on all of these 5 C's. So give them access to capital, bring them together in a community, build them through the mentorship, capacity building. And of course, we're using media and content to capture everything. And we're collaborating with other brands that can support what we're doing or are aligned with our vision. And we've given grants over the years. And, 235 has really been an organic thing because it's not really, I would call it an NGO, but it's a social enterprise. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
We'll go into that. It's a social enterprise that is supposed to generate some sort of revenue, but the priority is impact. Yeah, it's impact. So, we've been doing that annually. And about 3 years ago, we're like, you know what? We can't just be putting out content and be doing annual events alone. There has to be things that we do throughout the year as 234 Finance that engages this community and supports them, on an ongoing basis. So 2 years ago, we started rolling out different programs. We did the vision boarding because collaboration is a huge part of what we do. We partnered with PwC to do a tax masterclass because we also realize that this new government is very big on people paying their taxes. So for us, it's really about studying our environment, seeing what is important and seeing how to offer support in those areas. There's a whole process that we use to give grants. So you have to pitch, we'll teach you how to pitch, we'll teach you everything. So it's a lot of hand holding. I mean, SME is the only passion that would make you do this kind of work because the size of the businesses are really small and is a lot of work and is a lot of upskilling. So it's really from a place of passion and they can't pay you, right? They can't, you can't really charge them because these are businesses that their number one pain point is access to finance. So they can't afford the type of services that will help them scale at the level that, they need to scale at. And which is why what we do is really about impact, but finding the sweet spot between not running at a loss because all of these things also cost money and being able to offer these services and, your impact metrics are high. I don't have a life or, so it's always juggling, right? There was something I read somewhere and remember I'm a mom as well. I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. So there's so many sides to who I am, right? But it's knowing what to prioritize per time. You're not going to be 100% every time in everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's knowing what to prioritize and understanding the art of delegation. I think it's such an underrated skill. Do the things that you're good at and the other things that can be delegated, but have a solid team. The underlying skill that I have, and I think with 234 Finance is kind of even sharpened me with the things I do at Nepal. So as much as they're parallel, they're intertwined. So when I do some of my programs, I've always called it for sponsorship. And trust me, it's hard enough selling a service that somebody pays for. You can imagine when you're selling a service that in their mind, the person you're selling it to thinks that they're doing you a favor or it's from their CSR budget, right? So over time, we've also had to figure out how do we hit the sweet spot of getting money to fund our project and giving something in return that, that is of value to the company that is giving you money. So it's time and experience as much as that. So with 234, I mean, it's just, a balance. I'm looking at 234 every single day of the week. I'm waking up and I need to know what's going on. It's only passion and that deep desire for impact because I think personally that impact work is the most important work. If there's no impact and the basic things that people should have access to, they don't have, then every other thing, it has a spiral effect to even affecting society, right? And just knowing Nigeria has so many challenges where you can only either look at the challenges or look at the opportunities from those challenges. So if, you're a problem solver, it's almost impossible not to pick up something in a sector to try to solve. And even Nepal as a company, part of what has driven Nepal's growth, and I can tell you for a fact, because I've had this conversation at GMD so many times, is to provide a platform to create jobs, right? So it's also from an impact perspective. And even if a business, like a business that we're doing doesn't make money, but is able to pay salaries, our GMD is content with that.
Wow.
Yes. So at the end of the day is what is your why, right? And if your why is very strong and is deeply rooted in you, then you'll always figure out the rest.
What would be your advice to someone who's trying to start a business in Nigeria to do better success?
What is your why? That's number one, right? If your why is to make money and it's not from a place of passion, then you will struggle, because even businesses that you are deeply passionate about comes with a lot of headache. But is that passion that fuels you to keep pushing that business, right? Is that passion that fuels your interest to learning more about that business and making it work? You know what I mean? So if your why isn't something that drives, and your why may not be just passion, it could be, I need to support my family, right? So that's another angle, and that's the reality.
Black tax.
What you say?
You support black tax.
I mean, everyone, you have to have a black tax budget. You know, it would help you, because there will be things that sometimes something hits my account and I don't know whether there's a spirit. You know, and someone will come with a need, and you know that you can support that need, right? But I think, you know, starting a business to support your family is a very valid reason, and something that would drive the passion and the flow in you. So whatever that why is, your why has to be very, like, evident. Organic growth is something that is easy, not to, you know, rain on anyone's parade if you're raising VC funding or whatever, but at least if you grow organically, you know all the mistakes you've made. And the business, you would know when it's time to inject a different type of capital, when you're at that level to inject that capital. And there's a saying that goes, it's better to make a small mistake than to make a bigger mistake. Because when you're doing business, there's really no way of knowing until you do. Then you do repeatedly. Then over a period of time, you now understand that business end to end. And I think the best way to grow is to make those mistakes early enough. I remember there was something that Mark Zuckerberg, there was something he said about Facebook. I don't remember the interview, but I don't remember how he said it. But basically what he was saying was that when they were building Facebook, you know, they make mistakes. They quickly go and correct that mistake as they go along. So, and when you're small, it's easier to control things and it's easier to be nimble, right? So, and this is also the business model of tech startups, right? They scale significantly, but they operate in a very nimble way that they're able to be very efficient and manage their costs, but they're using technology to scale. As much as we're doing all of these things, we're nimble enough to, and efficient enough to, you know, keep our costs low, you know, even though we know we've grown. So I think, you know, be passionate, know your why, and be nimble enough to be flexible when things come at you, and bootstrap for as long as you can. Because if you bootstrap for a really long time, you're able to have more control, more understanding. And, you know, as you grow, it just becomes, you know, that growth is going to come, but it's always better when it comes naturally and organic.
What are some of the perks that are found about
Nigeria is a very interesting market, as you know. So for me, I like to see myself as a problem solver and someone that loves challenges. So Nigeria is not an environment that you have to be a certain kind of person to thrive in Nigeria. So it's either Nigeria works for you or it doesn't. There has to be a level of doggedness that is in you. And the thing with Nigeria is that everyone that is thriving here has that same personality, right? So it kind of challenges you, and I'm a bit competitive. So when you see people making some kind of moves, like, it makes you feel like, okay, me too, I can do this thing. And if you're being honest, some people that started businesses, is peer pressure has made them start business, because all of a sudden is the buzzword and it's cool to be a business owner. So whether even in a business, like as an entrepreneur, or even in a corporate setting, you're going to encounter challenges that would also build your character. And there's something that I say, if you can survive in Nigeria, I don't care whose child you are, because there are just some things that is beyond how much you have. Like, there are just some things, they say Nigeria will happen to you. And if you're able to rise above that, then it really puts you in a very unique position when you find yourself outside Nigeria, because you're now ahead of a lot of people. And we can see this evidence even in the diaspora community, right? Nigerians are one of the, you know, one of the, what would I say, immigrants that are doing really well.
Yep.
And even part of what we generate in Nigeria is remittances coming from that diaspora community. And we saw this happen in this whole Dirty December movement.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So, and, I feel like Nigeria is an interesting place right now. We're trying to change our narrative through doing, having these kinds of conversations and having these kinds of content. And, it'll be exciting if you're someone that really loves to solve problems, even within this, I don't know how to explain Nigeria. Even in the suffering, you're like suffering and you're smiling because there's this energy, when you're in this community, and when you also have a community of people who are on the same journey as you, it helps as well.
So if you could offer one piece of encouragement to Nigerians in diaspora about the possibility of coming back home and doing business here, what would that be?
There's a lot to do in Nigeria. It's not to, throw, if you have a good life there, no, I'm not saying you should leave everything, but you should stay connected. Because I strongly believe, if you look at the stats, Nigeria is, I think, top 3 fastest growing emerging markets. So you don't want to be in a position where you're detached from the market for your own benefit, right? You can, if you don't want to go all in, you can put some money away. You can visit periodically and see what's going on. You can support people that are doing interesting things. There are now all types of communities, all types of funds to support businesses. You don't even have to do it directly, but you can use your resources to support. You can use your knowledge. There's a brain drain. Talent is if you want to talk to any small, medium, large size corporation, talent gap is real. You'll find one person doing 5 people's job.
Yep.
Because there's a brain drain, there are people jabbing, there are all sorts of things, right? So when I say resources, it doesn't have to be your money. It could be your time, right? And that's why I do what I do. We always involve people. I've had people from the diaspora say, "Oh, Ezinne, I would love to speak on one of your panels," right? And that's a way to give back, because you're giving back your knowledge and you're helping to bridge a gap. So there are different ways, that you can decide to be part of, the growth and the improvement. Because as much as there's a lot of negative news, if you go on the news, there's all kinds of things happening. There's also progressive news. And I'm a progressive, right? This is not a party or a bad governance. Even in the bad, there's good happening. So it depends on what you choose to pay attention to, right? So if you see that there's a government that is being progressive, or there's something that is happening, even in your little community, and saying maybe on the federal level, but even in the state level, on the local government level, from an impact, it doesn't even have to be entrepreneurship. It could be healthcare. It could be, all kinds of social, there are different things that we need help in, as a nation, education, healthcare, entrepreneurship. Personally, I chose entrepreneurship because I feel like entrepreneurship is the way to help people to help themselves the quickest, right? But there's just so many things that can be done. There's a lot of work. And anyone in the diaspora that is listening to this, I really encourage you to find something that you're passionate about and see what you can do about it. Don't be part of the people that bash Nigeria and talk about all the things that are wrong with Nigeria, because at the end of the day, you're still a product. Whether you want to accept it or deny it, you're a product of Nigeria. And it's either you're supporting, if you're not doing something about it, then don't talk about it, right? Because everyone can do something at whatever level they're at. So that's my stand on this.
Thank you so much, Ezinne.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this amazing episode. I'm sure you guys have learned so much about how businesses should be more than just putting things together to make money, but about making an impact and changing your country. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and you leave a comment down below. And don't forget to share it with people you know this will benefit. My name is Ezinne, and until next time, don't forget to dream big, innovate boldly, and be excited to do business with Nigerians.